Second.
The first thing of note is that two Republican governors since our last meeting, Mary Phelan of Oklahoma and Nikki Haley of South Carolina, have just signed laws pulling their states out of Common Core State Standards Initiative amid the growing anti-Common Core sentiment around the country. And there is currently pending legislation in 12 states that are also seeking to review or pause the implementation of Common Core, and 7 governors have issued executive orders to re-examine, change, or delay the Common Core's implementation and use. As you probably know, around the state, every district is being asked to determine whether or not they're going to proceed with PARCC testing next year or stick with MCAS. There are even a couple of districts that will have the option of doing a blended decision, doing both if they so choose. Only 9 states, and this is important because one of the things as I talk to other school committee people around the state, there seems to be this sense of inevitability about PARCC testing, which I want to dispel. It's not true. Only 9 states, as I speak here tonight, only 9 states are committed to the PARCC test next year. 35 states have already committed to a test other than PARCC, and 6 states are still undecided. Initially, 23 states, plus the District of Columbia, signed on with PARCC. 15 of them have either completely rejected PARCC or are no longer certain they will continue. More and more Massachusetts school districts are joining Peabody and are opting out of PARCC, including Cambridge. In his written recommendation to his school committee, the Cambridge superintendent said, "We are concerned that we are chasing assessments and initiatives as the means to improve student outcomes instead of focusing on what we need to do in our classrooms to educate all students at high levels. We acknowledge that many of these initiatives come from the federal government." I want to say that again. We acknowledge that many of these initiatives come from the federal government. I repeated that because that's constitutionally illegal. We want to focus our energy on improving teaching and learning rather than to introduce new tests at this time. We will develop a plan to eliminate overlapping or duplicative assessments, reduce the amount of time spent on testing, and thereby increase the time spent on direct teaching. The DESE is still addressing significant concerns around accommodations for children with special needs. They still don't know how they're going to implement this PARCC test to students with special needs, and yet they want to move forward. Until these issues are settled, we are not inclined to subject our students to a testing situation that is not fully and properly designed. As I speak tonight, if the PARCC test was given out across the country, I should say if the high stakes test was given out to accommodate the Common Core standards, only 17% of the populations in states that are committed to PARCC would be taking PARCC. PARCC is not inevitable. If anything, it is waning. And to that point, I just received a notice from someone who shared this article. It's a recent release from the New York Times, and it's from the Gates Foundation. The Gates Foundation, who, as we know, the Bill and Melinda Gates paid somewhere in the vicinity of $2 to $2.5 billion to finance Common Core. They are calling for a 2-year moratorium on states or school districts making any high-stakes decisions based on tests aligned to the new Common Core standards that just was released today. Think about the significance of that. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation put up $2 to $2.5 billion to fund this, and even they know it's time to hit the pause button. In an open letter, Vicki Phillips, who is the director of the education for the Gates Foundation, wrote that the best new ideas aren't self-fulfilling. They have to be put into practice wisely. She added, "No evaluation system will work unless teachers believe it is fair and reliable." And I can tell you from the experience of the 4 states, or the 3 states, that did the Common Core implementation earlier than others, as being Florida, Kentucky, New York, every single one of those states said the implementation was a disaster. So I think, and I bring this up because I think we're on very solid ground here in Peabody when we decided to stick with MCAS. I firmly believe that it's well within the realm of possibility that MCAS will remain as the testing and standard of choice in Massachusetts and still the gold standard for educational standards in this country. One other important item of note related to Common Core and the data collection. As you know, I had requested many weeks ago from the DESE the list of entities with whom our student information is being shared. I quite frankly didn't get any results. I asked the Massachusetts Association of School Committees to get involved. They put in a request. That too was ignored. And on June 5th, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, signed by Anne Marie Cugno, the president of MASC, sent a letter to Mitchell Chester, which reads, "Dear Commissioner Chester, I am requesting any records you may have concerning the identity of any individual, corporation, or other entities other than public school districts that have received or are eligible to receive student performance data that have been or may be generated through the so-called MCAS or PARCC testing or through any other data gathering program that may hold aggregate data on public school students in Massachusetts. If you are not the custodian of such records, please forward this request to whoever is the custodian. This request is made pursuant to Massachusetts Public Records Law. Please feel free to contact the Massachusetts Association of School Committees concerning any questions you may have relative to my request." We had to institute a Freedom of Information Act to find out from the Department of Education in Massachusetts just the list of who they share our student data with. Do you know how outrageous that is? And that's rhetorical. I know you do. This is unbelievable. And if anyone thinks that getting this kind of information when this data is going to the federal government, if you think that's going to be easier to get them to answer than the state agency, you're sadly mistaken. I'm delighted that the MASC took this measure, and I can't wait to see the response from DESE. That is my report. Thank you.